This episode is brought to you by Granola, Shopify, and Fabric by Gerber Life. If meetings are eating up your day and you want clean, structured notes without the stress, try Granola AI totally free for 3 months at granola.ai/Kwame. Ready to turn your what ifs into a real business? Sign up for your $1 per month trial with Shopify at shopify.com/Kwame. And finally, for the parents listening, protect your family's financial future in just minutes. Apply for term life insurance today at meetfabric.com/Kwame. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states, prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Imagine standing at the edge of a high-stakes moment, a critical negotiation, a boardroom presentation, or a career-defining interview. Your pulse quickens, your throat tightens, and then suddenly, the authentic person you were 5 minutes ago vanishes, replaced by a stiff, scripted version of yourself that you can't even recognize. This is the red light syndrome, and it's the greatest barrier to building real trust in business. Today's guest, Aaron Calafato, is a master storyteller and consultant who has turned the art of being human into a high-level professional skill. As the creator of the popular podcast 7 Minute Stories, he spent over 15 years helping leaders master the triple P of communication: practice, preparation, and privacy. And in this episode, we're going to cover 4 key themes. Theme number 1, ditch the script. We'll look at storytelling without a net and why it's the fastest way to get someone to actually trust you. Next, read the room. We'll show you how a simple pause can turn a boring lecture into a real shared experience. Next, drop the mask. We'll explore that tricky middle ground where you can hit your business goals while still acting like a real human being. And then lastly, train your voice. Aaron even shares a 5-minute daily trick that you can do at home to help you speak with total confidence. If you are ready to take off the professional mask and speak with real confidence that connects and persuades, this conversation is for you. Let's jump in.
Starting off, I wanted to be an actor, and I remember a lot of my teachers when it was more on film than on stage, when I would be on sets and we would learn for acting for the camera. One of the psychological attributes that great teachers would talk to me about was what you're describing. And they would say, this is red light syndrome. So you have this life that's happening and we're talking, right? And all of a sudden, when one knows, who isn't trained, when one knows the audio recording is on or the camera is on, then all of a sudden we get into, I have to be good mode. I have to perform mode. And the great ones, if you look at their psychology and their stories, a lot of times they have messy backgrounds. Like you look at a Marlon Brando, right? So you look at the personal life, it's like, it's a fucking nightmare. But it's because there was no difference from when they were eating an orange to when that camera's on. They had a skill set, but they could live and be alive without the impediment of knowing. And I know for me, as I've had to work on that, because as I don't want to say a people pleaser, but growing up in a family where I always wanted a seat at the table, an Italian-American side, especially where you only got a few seconds to speak and you finally got a chance to sit at the adult table. And when you did, you better make it count. And so I always wanted to make sure that the audience and the guest and the person I'm talking with knew my intentions and liked me. Like, all I want to do in this show is have you have a bromance with me like you did with Sean French this morning when the episode came out. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the number one, if I could be friends with you. But that's just how I was growing up. And so healthy or unhealthy, that can affect the performance mode, whether it's on camera or whether, you're talking, selling, negotiating, whatever. And so that was one thing that was such a great blessing about learning acting, storytelling, performance, was the psychological aspect of, wait a second, you have to retrain yourself to be human when you're being recorded.
You're 100% right. And it's kind of paradigm shifting when you realize that being yourself in the professional world is a learned skill. It's like you are who you are, then you have to learn how to be who you are when it matters.
That's right. It is. And I think, just to add to that, so it can go the other way, and you've seen it too, where there's a lot of wonderful accounts. And I follow these with some of my work with creating podcasts for Indeed and Glassdoor in the workplace. I'm looking at performative arts, but performance art in the professional space. And a lot of people, they have such great intentions. I'm probably one of them. I'm guilty of it where it's like, I'm happy to announce, right? And it's like there's a lot of meta commentary happening about how we all perform at work or in your job as an entrepreneur, in the organization, nonprofit, corporate, whatever. And I have empathy for all of us because generally most people, we're just trying to make it through. And the ones that can find a way to still perform and deliver while still being true,
Mm.
that's the stuff that I think really you feel good about yourself, and other folks go, "That's a real one. That's a real person." The the folks that struggle with it, I get it, because it's not a bad thing. It's just that there is this need, or there seems to be this desire to be good or to be something that you're not, when you could just be like, "Hey, this is who I am." And yeah, you gotta be buttoned up, show up. Like, we're prepared for this. There was work put into this. I got there's a lot of inertia that goes to creating the moment, but when you're in the moment, it's like you gotta let go of all that infrastructure, and then you just gotta be alive, and you
Yes.
have that in all your conversations on this catalog, like, it's just this flow of you've hit that mark, you guys and all your guests and your team, so, yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And,
Yeah.
it means a lot because if you listen to some of the earlier episodes, you realized, oh, it took him a long time to get natural. And it's so interesting too, because one of the things that I've done over the time just interviewing all of these exceptional, brilliant minds is I've recognized that there is a desire that a lot of folks have when it comes to these conversations where they're like, I wish I could just map everything out and script everything. But
Mm.
to your point, the way that the top performers operate is that they will take the time to prepare exceptionally well, and then they have so much confidence in their skills that they're willing to just let go.
Yes, sir.
And it's tough for people to do that. And for you, you're an incredible conversationalist and an incredible storyteller. And when it comes to these negotiations, I'm recognizing that there is a bit of performance anxiety that happens. It's very hard for them to do just that, to let go and flow. And so for you, how do you get to that? How did you get to that point where you were able to be yourself and be relaxed and
Mhm.
authentic while still performing at such a high level?
I think it's because it was an accident, but it was a happy accident. And what I mean by that is the way that I formulated my skill set of telling stories just happened because of upbringing, luck, culture, and sort of a natural ability. And to go further with that, I was mentioning growing up in my family, everyone was great storytellers. So my grandfather was a fantastic storyteller. My grandfather and my father, they were great storytellers. They had different professional roles, but what you know this, and many have been discovering finally, I think, I don't know, it was the Wall Street Journal, one of these big magazines that goes, storytellers, all the CEOs are loving them. I'm like, bro, we've been doing this for eons. Like the great teachers, the spiritual teachers, the great faiths of the world, the great philosophies, even the way we communicate scientific discoveries, we're telling a story. Narrative is the shortest distance between two souls.
Hmm.
Shortest distance between two souls. The other stuff, the intellectual stuff, we can grasp, but not guys like me. I mean, I'm 20 minutes south of Cleveland, and so I grew up going like, I had the ability to comprehend intellectually, but there were so many more learned folks who could process things from an intellectual, a data-driven, a ones and zeros point of view. I've learned to get to that space and be a little bit dangerous, but the way to my heart, my understanding, and I think most people, no matter where you're from, it's a universal, it's a democratizing moment. We all connect with narrative. So
Hmm.
that's a later discovery. But growing up, I was just telling extemporaneous stories because my dad told extemporaneous stories. My grandfather told extemporaneous stories, and we all have them because the vignettes that happen in conversation are just stories within a structured conversation. And I remember, my grandfather would be in the car with me and pick me up in the summertime. We had these 45-minute drives, and this dude, it was magic, Kwame. How did this guy do it? He goes, "You want me to tell you about that time where I knocked out the Golden Glove champ from Youngstown?" I was like, "Oh yeah, Grandpa, let me tell you what this was. 1945." I mean, he does this whole thing, tells me about the dance. He had to fight over the girl, and whether it was based on truth or embellished or whatever, the process of him, with just him and our imaginations and his ability to vocalize without a script, translating an idea into a short form story and just speaking it took me to a world. Didn't need a camera, didn't need a production team, didn't need Steven Spielberg. The fundamental ancient way that we all have told stories around fires and tribes, it goes way, way, way back. So it's an old school form, but he was a master. My father was a master at it. And so they did it in their professions. He was a salesperson. My dad was a lawyer and a prosecutor. So I watched him growing up in criminal cases, talking to juries. My parents were divorced, so it was a rough divorce, but the time I got to spend with my dad, I'd sit in my visitation was sitting in the back of the courthouse. And right here where I boomerang back to where I live right now, and he was defending someone or he was prosecuting someone, but he'd be giving his opening statements. And I'd see how he'd use pacing, and I'd see how he used story. Hey, everybody, I know you're here. Listen, you got the jury duty thing. This is a nightmare, but let me tell you why it's so important you're here right now and why this is life and death. People lean in. This my client over here. I know you have a perception, blah, 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 right? So I saw him pace out this story and I go, whoa. So that was the training ground. So that's a long way of answering to say, how did I get to a place where I felt comfortable more easily? I just learned how to tell extemporaneous stories early. And then I found that as my medium for expression and how I built my community with my podcast and things. So I don't have a script. I haven't written anything since 8th grade.
Wow.
I mean, I know how to write. I'm just letting you know. Don't cut me off the show. I know how to write. You didn't make a mistake, but you know what I'm saying? I'm a speak first. I just had Kelly Corrigan, who I got to introduce you to. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and she's a memoirist. And I was telling her I was embarrassed to talk to her because she writes these long, vignette, but they're short stories, but they're like novels, 300, 400 pages. And I was like, I'm so jealous that you can write these long stories. I said, all I do is tell these little 7-minute stories off the top of my head. She goes, that's a form of writing. You're just writing with you're in the oral tradition first, and then you can transfer. But I'm just using it through this medium, through my hand to page or to type. You're just speaking it out first. And so there is an editorial process that happens, but that's what I meant when I said it's an accident. I just developed over the years, without even freaking knowing it, an editorial process that allowed me to edit in my brain before I did it on the page, before I wrote out a script. So there's almost like a filtration. As I'm talking to you right now, there's a million things I could say, but I have a sense of where I want to go and how I want to communicate. Sometimes it doesn't land, sometimes it does. But to answer your question, it's by accident. And then it's recognizing that was a skill set. And once I found that, then it was like, oh, wait, not a lot of people had that same luxury to walk into a place and go, yeah, I can talk about anything. I can tell you a story about anything. And that was like, that was a moment where I was like, I may not have all these other things, but I have that. And if that connects me on a one-on-one, like I said, the distance between two souls, if I can let someone know that this is going to be a good experience, that I have good intentions, that I try to be a good person, and I want to make stuff better rather than destroy it, and let them know they're safe in my I can do all that just by telling them a story. That's it. That's all I need.
Amazing. This is so much to explore here, Aaron. So much. So the first thing is, this is a message to the person who's listening to this podcast. So I'm in Columbus, so I know Ohio,
Cleveland.
so,
yep.
Yeah. So if anybody from Cleveland or Youngstown says I have a story for you, listen, buckle up. It's going to be fun. It is going to be good. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, when it comes down to how you became a great storyteller, I think it just comes down to two things: observing and practicing, and doing that for your whole life. And that's how you get great at something. And so I think a lot of times people turn their journey into their journey of how to become a better storyteller into more of an intellectual exercise where they want to get the formula down and map it to
Mm.
this thing instead of just doing what is required, which is practicing telling stories and seeing how it lands. And I know that was an integral part of your journey too, because you actually had the opportunity to tell stories and see real-time feedback and start to hone the stories with time too. The other thing I want to explore, and we'll get down to these last two things in a little bit because I want to sequence this, pacing and organizing thoughts. Because pacing is something that I don't think people talk about enough. And I know that's part art, part science. And then the other one is organizing your thoughts, because you said there's a lot of thoughts, that there are a lot of thoughts that are happening, and you have this internal editing process to make sure that it stays coherent. And I know a lot of people struggle when it comes to storytelling because they're saying, okay, I'll talk about this and then I'll talk about that, and it seems scattered and people can't follow.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to this, let's actually start with pacing. Going back to your dad when he was in the courtroom and holding people onto the words. Can you help folks to understand the difference between a story, like one story that's told with good pacing and another story that is just told without any care to pacing? What's the difference in how it lands?
So I think the best way to say it, because you're right, there are learned folks who have put this, and I say that sincerely. I don't, it's not like learned, but I've always been jealous of people who can contextualize and give things labels or formulas. And there is a formula. I've oftentimes found it and then made up my own name. And then I was like, oh yeah, that brilliant philosopher already did that shit 400 years ago. So I'm like, yeah. Well, and so it's not that I know I'm not discovering it, but it was the only way that I could find a way to label this experiential phenomenon. So I've
Yeah.
always been experiential first and then labeling, rather than labeling and formula and then experiencing. And that's, I would tell you, is the happy accident, because it
Mm.
allows you to perform and practice almost ignorantly, because I didn't have a preconceived notion of what I was supposed to do. I'm just like, it feels right that I should do this. So with pacing, the best way to describe it in my way is, when pacing is all about allowing the other person, the audience, whether it's 1 or 10 or a million, to tell their own stories simultaneously while you tell yours.
Ooh.
And so it's like a domino effect. So when I would hear him, my father, or I watch a great storyteller and I would study them, it wasn't just about arbitrary pauses. You I'll tell you a few things for the listeners that happen simultaneously that you can put into practice right away, and it's kind of fun to do, because if you don't, especially if you're just, whatever your job is, if you don't have a ton on the line where it's like, oh, this performance is everything. If it's just an interview or a conversation or a client meeting, there's things where it's like, one, the first thing is giving yourself the space to pause. So you first have to say, if there feels like a moment here where I want something to land, let me let it land and not have to fill in the right thing, blah, 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 blah. Or where you take time to actually shift or change or be alive. So there's been many times here I've talked to you, and I've always said I'm a better storyteller than a conversationalist, but I'm okay with stopping and going, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this. It's okay to be alive, even in a presentation. It doesn't have to be a perfect story. It just has to be a human story.
Oh, that's powerful.
You're so if I'm going, and you've seen it, I promise this is answering it. I'm closing with the answer, but I just want to say a lot of it is when we watch people give speeches, the most powerful moments, and you'll recognize it right away. They'll say, I'd like to thank everybody in the organization, and they'll stop and they'll start crying.
Mm.
And they go, I fucking can't do this. Every movie. And they take the script. What do? They tear it up.
Terrible.
Then they say the thing. So part of pacing is just allowing yourself the space to be human, tell a coherent story. And by the way, there's a technical advantage of that too. You can collect your damn thoughts. A lot of it's
Yeah.
just right. A lot of it's just like, I'm going fast, so slow down. So there's a multi-layer consciousness thing happening. So you're saying to yourself, let's slow this down. The other thing that's happening is you're taking simultaneously the temperature of the room. If what I'm saying isn't landing, or it needs to be, the audience non-verbally will tell you. And then even if you're on a podcast, you know this, you kind of have to imagine an audience, and that imagined audience tells you slow down or land on that moment. So one, giving your space to be human, giving yourself a space to literally pause, gather your thoughts, and or change pacing, change moments, change ideas, and then taking the temperature in the room with how that audience is reacting. And what happens next, this is where I can't quantify, is when you do those three things, there then becomes a conversation. It's a nonverbal conversation, and great comedians have this. They sense the room. And when you sense the room and you know you got that trust and they want to hear what's next, you can keep that pause for 5 damn seconds. They'll wait for you. Yeah. Now you got them. So you're just like, let me tell you a story about my grandfather, and it might change your life too. Hold on now. Now you go into it. So once you're there, then it's communal. The opposite, and this happens to all of us, happened to me. The opposite is, it is a siloed experience where there's someone giving a really boring ass PowerPoint and the audience going, what, I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to be nice to each other. You don't boo the person on the stage, and the person there pretends that, like, maybe if I could just reach one person. No, the whole thing sucked. We all know it. We all love each other. It's all love. The whole thing sucked. So, but it's because there isn't this communal thing that happens. And what you're asking about is right at the heart of that. The pathway to a communal experience, I believe, is pacing. Pacing creates the world in which we go, oh, this is real now. This is where we tear the script off.
Mm-hmm.
And even if this person's organized in his or her thoughts, this doesn't feel scripted. Audiences, we all can respect form and style, and we'll lean into that. But when we feel it's fake, we're out.
Yeah.
We have a discernment. Human beings know it's a risk. And sometimes it's through whatever fear, stereotyping, whatever, the parts of our brain, we go, this is dangerous, or this is strange, or I don't like this. And even if that's the wrong instinct, that's the thing. We all have these biases. So it's like in a conversation, we have those too. And if someone's coming off as like not real, even an elongated answer like this, you'll sit around for it because at least you trust it. And so that's what I would say is pacing allows for human experiences, allows for trust to happen, and allows for that communal experience. And then that's when the art begins to blossom.
This is powerful. And what I love about this is that you gave us the tools to make the appropriate reads without being prescriptive. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the beauty of the accuracy of your answer, and also what makes this so tough too. Because going back to what I said before, mm-hmm. you can't just do this by yourself. It is communal by nature. And so those stories, the times where a presentation flops, like you said, is like the person is presenting to themselves. This presentation would have been exactly the same if they were by themselves versus in front of an audience. And we can sense that. It's like, oh, you don't even really care that I'm here. You're just doing your thing, mm-hmm. Completely without regard to how I'm feeling about it. And it is a really tough thing to do. But once you capture the magic, it is a powerful tool to be able to edit yourself and your approach and go with the vibe of the audience. It's like, oh, they want more of this. They need more of this. I'm going to stay here longer. They're not feeling this part. Let me just segue
That's
the
right.
Story, move, right? And so you have to ask yourself this question: who am I telling the story for? Because a lot of times we're telling the story for ourselves. And so it's like, I'm just going to talk so I can feel good. But if we're really telling a story to connect with another person, that story will still be true and authentic, but it will sound slightly different if you tell it to this person, to that person, to this audience, because you are editing and adapting the tone and the approach and the pauses and the inflection points based on what you can see that the audience wants. So it is a dance that is more like jazz
yes.
than something that is more robotic.
Man, you do it. You contextualize so well. You have a great skill of contextualizing ideas. And one unexpected point here, this is unexpected. So when you talk about jazz and you talk about getting the communal experience, like using pacing as an entry point to that, one thing you just helped me learn is I initially, when we started talking, I was talking about the nature that we all have, or most of us have, for wanting people to like us.
Yeah.
That's a good start. What you develop as a storyteller and what you realize, it's not about wanting them to like you. It's about wanting them to trust you. And that's what you're saying, right? So then it's like, then when your intention, when you say if the desire is connection, if what's paramount is the connection, not being good, if that's your paramount aim, you're in, because it doesn't always land, but at least your aim is true.
Yeah.
Your aim is true, because they'll sense, oh, he's trying to be good, or no, you're just like, I want you to trust me. And then now pacing becomes a tool rather than the destination. Oh, how do I get, this negotiate? Okay. Did this not work? Let me approach it this way. Oh, the scripted thing didn't work. Tear that shit out. Let me talk to you person to person. Oh, that didn't work. Let me come over here. And by the way, the goal isn't, oh, I'm going to take it, take all your money. By the way, great storytellers are bad. Some bad people are great storytellers, and they do it that way. That's who con people are. Con men. They're wonderful. They can tell a story, but their aim isn't true. If your aim is true, you can still use those same tactics. So anyways, that was something that just appeared when you really contextualize that. So yeah, thank you for that, man. That's pretty.
Oh, no,
cool.
thank you. This is great. And this is how it goes too. When you communicate, there's a synergistic element of it. It's like, oh, cool. Like both of us will leave with new ideas out of this because of the conversation, which I think is the power of the connection through communication. And it's funny when I think about storytelling, one of the things that can hold people back, especially in the business world, is their desire to sound smart. So it's kind of like, okay, yes, I want people to like and approve of me, but I also want to sound smart. And it was funny when I was doing the TED Talk the first time. People know me as a speaker now. They know who I am now. But before, I was very academic. I went through lots of schooling. So the people who were speaking in public the most for me were professors. So I was like, cool, I want to be like them. So I remember when I first did the TED Talk, like run through to the folks in Dayton, they said it was feeling kind of like a workshop or lecture. I was like, yes, exactly. That's what I was going for. They're like, that's not what we want at all. And so I had to, through that process, had to learn how to talk like myself. I had to learn how to not sound academic, how to not sound like a lawyer, because there was this shift that would happen. Like once I'm in front of people, boom, it's Kwame the lawyer. That's what you're going to hear. But instead, now you're getting boom, Kwame, who has something to share with you if you like it. And it's a very tough shift to make. And so for the folks who are saying, okay, whether it's a negotiation with another person, a tough conversation, or something in front of people in the professional space, like you said, this mask comes on. So what are some things that we could do to take it off?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a great question. So, what they always say, it's like, and I relate to you. I was just actually in my own head thinking about how always wanting to sound smart was the worst thing for me, because, you are smart. I am smart. And all of us are smart in our own way. And I think that's the thing. It's like, just be smart in your way. And there's ways to lift up your language, or there's certain industries where there's certain language that works. Like, do the thing, speak the language. You go to a different place, it's okay to learn the language, but it's not okay to lose yourself.
That's good.
Right? So you can learn the language, and that's a respect to that industry, that country, those people, and you're showing, hey, I'm giving first. I'm not taking. I'm not coming in going like, everyone speak English here. They're like, bro, why aren't this in English? Like, dude, you're in Madrid. Like, bro, like, so I mean, so it's like it's like a weird, it's a very weird thing sometimes. So I think taking the mask off first, and this sounds a bit prescriptive or maybe a bit cliche, but this is the only way I know how, is it's recognizing that you wear a mask. And I know that, listen, the simplest stuff often is the stuff we go, oh yeah, we got that. We don't got that. I didn't. Yeah, I got that. No, like what you just said, I'm aware when I gave this presentation, it's like, that's a part of me, that's a form of me, but I'm not coming through the way I would want to come through naturally. And so you can still do that, by the way. This is the other thing. I'll get in conversations and there will be people who have, they are lawyers or they are in sales. And it's like, hey, listen, or they're in the corporate game where they have to do brand storytelling. It's like, hey, I get these parameters. I can't just go off the handle and tell stories that are, whether it's inappropriate or language or whatever, right? Or they feel like that's going to be compromising the business. You can still speak the language and stay true.
Yeah.
And so that's one, is recognizing that we all wear masks, but then once you take that mask off, shaping the way you tell the story doesn't mean you're putting on that mask, because again, it goes back to, within these parameters, can I still tell the truth? Here's a real simple example. If you're a parent and your kid asks you a really complicated question, you're not going to address them in the same way that you're going to address your colleague, your friend, your parent, or a stranger. You're going to shape what you say to fit that environment and also benefit them. So if they're like, hey, I remember my daughter, I'm a man of faith. And so my daughter would just ask complex questions, and she would say like, hey, is God real? And you're just like, oh shit. And so regardless of, no one knows the answer, but the point is, when you address your kid, you're not going to be like, you're going to come at it differently. So part of that for me is like knowing to your point, who you're speaking to, knowing that we all have the tendency to want to say it right. And so once you just know that, then you have the opportunity to move and go, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm not going to, and when I tell her this, I'm going to say, hey, listen, you know how when you were really little, I told you that story, and then you tell it in a way that's still true, but you're doing it not from a place of performance. And I think it kind of goes to being outcome driven. I think that's what you were hitting on too. When you talked about people in sales, one of the hardest things in the world is that there is a clear, there's clear compartments we live in, which are transactional and authentic. And then there's crossover. What we're talking about here, especially in the business world, there's crossover because we're not all fake, but it's transactional. So part of removing the mask, and I know this is exploratory, so thank you for staying with me. Part of taking the mask is realizing you are either in a transactional mode, you are in a authentic mode, or you are in a hybrid mode. An authentic mode is you and your kid. You're just hanging in the car. You're at Swenson's. You know what I'm saying? You got the potato teasers. I ordered 6 of those things. Give me 6 potato teasers. And you're just talking, and she's like, I love you. I love you. That's authentic mode. Or your dad, gets a tough diagnosis and he goes, can you just sit with me? Yeah, I'll sit with you. That's authentic mode. At McDonald's, it's like, you want a larger or a small soda. The small, that's transactional. Now,
Right.
and authentic moments, but they don't want to hear like, can I tell you a story? It's like, oh, dude, I got a line of 900 fucking people. Sorry. And what are we doing? So that's transaction at the bank, right? It's at the bank there. So it's recognizing for me what has worked. So I'm only going to share what's worked for me. And then the listener can go, oh, I get that. Or I don't know what this guy's talking about. To take the mask off in any given moment in negotiations, conversations, or story is recognizing, what room am I in? Am I in an authentic room? Am I in a transactional room? Or this is the hardest one. This is where is when it's both. And that's where, like an interview, this is a moment where it is transactional. We all have shit on the line, but I have space to be authentic.
Yes.
In the sales cycle, when I'm selling something, there's something on the line. There's the human needs, the hierarchy of needs. I got rent to pay. I got the college tuition. I'm scared. I'm always scared being from, Ohio. Everyone, Cleveland is your house could go at any time. The factory leaves. Like, so we have all these fears driving us. But in the midst of this transaction of trying to sell something or convince someone of something, is there a moment to be authentic and make that the aim? So there's a transcendence that has to happen where you decide that your aim is not transactional. It is authentic in those hybrid moments. And when you do that, oftentimes good results follow, because then it's like, oh shit, the party across from you recognizes they don't care if they get the sale or not. They just care about getting me to trust them.
Yeah.
And now they're more willing to do business. They're more willing to have conversations. They're more willing to be in that complicated space with you because they are in a hybrid space, because they got shit on the line. And so I think seeing things through the paradigm of transactions, authenticity, or a hybrid mode allows you to take the mask off, know where you're at, and then behave accordingly.
Yes, brilliant. This is powerful because essentially it starts with self-awareness. We need to understand who we are and what role we're currently playing, but also what role we play to the other person. It's like, okay, yes, with the example, because I'm a father too. So yes, I am Quam the father.
That's right. Quam father. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. And so cool. I'm in the father role. So I know what that means to me, but also I need to know what that means to my kids in this moment. What do they need from me? So understanding our identity, it has to be nuanced in terms of knowing who I am, but also who I am to them. And then the other thing is, I love the saying, okay, we have some purely authentic conversations, we have some purely transactional conversations, and now what is expected of a lot of people in the workplace is the mix of authentic and transactional. We're here for a business purpose, and at the same time you should bring your authentic self to work, and that is really hard to do. And the thing that keeps coming up in my mind is focusing on connection over performance. Connection over performance. I'm not trying to perform necessarily. I am trying to meaningfully connect and build that trust while at the same time being mindful of my goals and put the conversation in that direction. And I think those moments of authenticity are truly when you can go off script, which is what scares people to death because they want to be perfect, but this doesn't sound perfect. If I'm negotiating and then I say, you know what? I'm not going to BS you here. This is a tough situation for us. So we really would like to do business with you. We have other offers from other companies and we like you the best. So the thing is, I have to make a business decision at the end of the day, but I want to be clear about the fact that we have options, but we would prefer to work with you. So how can we make this happen? So that's not like something that sounds, perfectly scripted, but it's like, hey, I was on a script and then I caught myself and I said, you know what? You deserve better from me. I am not going to hit you with something that's scripted. It's you and me here. I'm going to connect with you. And I think there's some magic there behind being confident enough in who you are and what you bring to the table to say, I don't need to perform. I just need to connect.
First of all, here's a real world example right now live that we've done here for the listener. I was talking about the back and forth and knowing the community. As I talked to you, I recognized early you are a master at contextualization.
Thank you.
So after the first answer, what that told me was, and your producer's probably like, shit, I knew that I could make my answers a little bit more exploratory rather than I'm going to, because, you could do the one liner.
Yeah.
I've been, I always, something I would study great pastors and how they spoke. That was one thing is I loved how pastoral folk could, with one-liners, the way they use the great speakers. But I had that at my availability, but because of your skill, as we're talking right now, I'm watching, I'm listening, and I'm going, I could explore something a little bit more like paint, and you'll contextualize it for me.
Yeah.
And whereas there might be another experience if I'm on a different show or just with a different person, not good, bad, right, wrong, nothing, just who they are, where I need to make it a little bit more buttoned up, a little bit more. I'm going to take you from A to Z. And so in this very moment, I recognize the type of conversation we could have. And that's because of how you responded. So that's listening to the audience,
Wow.
know who you're with. I'm like, I could talk for 5 minutes and put paint all over the canvas. It's like the wild storytelling guy. And you could go, oh yeah, that's this. And I was thinking to myself, if I can leverage enough discretionary income for my consultancy, I'm just going to ask you I just want to hire you to come with me in every meeting. And I'm just going to say, this is the translator. I said this thing and here's what I meant. And then life would be perfect because you're great at contextualizing. But that's a very real moment that you could mirror if you're listening, knowing the person that's in front of you and their skill set, how they're responding. And then the conversation comes alive that way by recognizing that. So that you can deepen the authenticity. You can deepen the specificity. You can make it more brief. You can tell if they're falling asleep. Okay. It doesn't mean they're not good people. It's let's keep this tight. If it's an executive level, there's a timing issue. So it's like less authenticity, but you can still sprinkle it. So it's a kind of, like you said, it's a dance. And so it's a beautiful thing. So even in this meta moment right now we're having, I'm experiencing that with you where it's like, I recognize a skill set and I recognize there's a way that I can approach this and be a little bit more like me, where I kind of just, I'm thinking and I'm not so scripted, but you've created that environment.
Yes.
Here.
Yes. No, I appreciate this because it's true. Because the way that you will communicate can and should shift based on the audience and who's in front of you. And there are times, because you see how I communicate, I can go like this forever. I love this. And then I remember there was somebody I was talking to. She doesn't do podcasts, but shout out to Diana Cantor. She's a great storyteller herself and a great public speaker. But she is very curious. And my base is curiosity, but she is extremely curious. And so it was really cool in the conversation to sit back and let her drive the conversation, where she's just asking all of these questions and I see what she's doing. But I'm like, I trust her. I'm going to sit back and she's got the wheel. This is great. And so usually in my conversations, I'm making sure that I'm asking the questions, steering the conversation in a specific direction, and the other person's doing the majority of the talking. But it was interesting because with her, I was like, I trust her as a conversationalist and as a person, so she can steer the ship. She's asking more questions. I'm doing more of the talking, but I could be a bit more extemporaneous in the way that I am responding. And so it's so cool how you can, as you get better at as a communicator, you start to be able to vary the way that you communicate based on the audience and the person, the pacing and everything. And I think if you were to listen to our episodes, we're broing out. This is great. Love it. And then we're both Ohio boys too.
Yep.
So like there's instant rapport. And then there might be somebody who's a bit older and more academic. I'll approach it differently. Somebody who's from a different culture, I'll approach it differently. And it is authentically at my core the same person.
That's right.
But we will kind of negotiate around the edges in order to make sure the conversation flows. And so that's why, again, going back to what we said at the beginning, for the person who's listening, when they want to become a better communicator and a better storyteller, you need reps, and you need reps with diverse audiences so you can know how to adjust, because there's no book that can tell you specifically how to adjust to a specific audience consistently. Again, we just need these reps.
The reps are important. The other thing is this is kind of going a little bit, but this is where my head's at. So I'm letting you into the craziness here because I trust you. Okay. So there's the pre-manifestation and there's the manifestation in life. So we have the internal and the external, and what I'm feeling in this conversation. And it's so important for the listener to know, thinking about it in this terms, there's stuff in your head, there's stuff outside of your head. And then when it comes to communication, there's the pre-manifestation and then how you manifest it. There's a third layer then. And it is the distribution mode of how and where that communication goes. And that's what you're saying. This is, are you in a small room of 80 people? Pre-manifestation is real. You're authentically you put it out there, but it's different for a room of 80 than it is for a room of 8,000. It's different for an audio focused podcast than it is for a documentary or a video focus. It doesn't mean we don't tell the same story. We don't approach it authentically. We don't do it, but the distribution mode really does matter. And there's artistry there that people take for granted. So that sense of that sense of knowing where you're at and how it's coming across, you can add a whole nother layer where you can use that environment to your advantage. Going back to the jury analogy, they're stuck there.
Right.
You can take them on a journey. You still be respectful of their time. That's different than you're in an elevator.
Right.
That's different than you're in an interview. That's different than you have a captive audience who trusts your podcast. So I just want to highlight the beauty of the diversity of distribution modes for the forms of communication. So it's a layered approach, but going full circle, the only way you find out how to take the mask off, how to tell stories in different ways, how to have conversations, and then put them in environments and distribution modes that are effective is doing it over and over
Yes.
and over and over again, and being okay with being clunky at first.
Yeah.
You will
Yeah.
refine it. You are smarter than you think. Your brain will adapt and go, oh, I'm going to try this next time. Oh, and it's jazz. Jazz has a structure. And then you go, where's the scale go? I have a parameter. Build your parameters. Don't go crazy. Don't go, don't piss people off. Don't go off the rails, but build a parameter and then paint.
Yes.
That's what extemporaneous storytelling is. Extemporaneous storytelling it's storytelling without a net. Extemporaneous storytelling is going, oh, I have this framework of a short story, or at least in my case, I got 7 minutes. I got this story about this funeral I went to, or I have a story I want to tell about finding the best restrooms when you're in public spaces. And it's like these little anecdotes. Comedians do it all the time. They're little bullet points. And then you go, what's the beginning, middle, and end? That's your canvas. And then the repetition, the reason I think why for me, have become, that's my mode, that's my form, is because I just did it over and over and over and over again and kept it in that framework. And pretty soon you find yourself being able to tell a story at any point in time. And I always I always recommend to friends, and these are people listening who are friends, if extemporaneous storytelling is not for everybody, it doesn't have to be your mode of expression. In fact, it is a strange mode of expression. And I find myself lucky in terms of building an audience in the podcast space because there's just not a lot of people en masse that do it. So it's a niche market to begin with. So that's great from a competitive edge or a audience building edge. But from a practitioner's point of view, if it is not your skill set, still practice using it because it'll strengthen all your other skill sets. That's what I always recommend. So I always say, do an exercise like I do a 7-minute story. And the exercise is this: get a timer, go by yourself, think about a memory of your day, set the timer for 5 minutes, 3 minutes. This could be 7, could be 10, whatever, but keep it no more than 10. And I would even advise no more than 5. So for this example, set a timer for 5 minutes, go by yourself, press the timer, and then I want you to tell the story without a single note, a single script, a single line about what happened in that moment. It could be someone pissed you off at the drive-thru. It could be, God, all I do is talk about drive-thrus, by the way. But it shows you I'm in drive-thru with kids. What do you want? Number 2 with the milkshake? So tell that story. Tell the story about something unexpected. Tell the story about good, but whatever it is, but you got to keep it to 5 minutes. And the first time you do it, it's going to be so painful. If you haven't done this, you're going to go, oh, what do I? But then do it again. Then if you do that once a day, you will notice, if you do a check-in in 6 months, if just make it part of your practice, 5 minutes a day, you will notice in an interview and when you're in a conversation, all of a sudden this muscle, you'll be able to, I'm going to tell you a story. It's cool as shit. So I always say, don't do it as your medium, do it as a practice. And that'll strengthen your core skill set, which could be writing. It could be intellectual. It could be academic, like you were saying. It could be more, whatever your skill set, whatever your distribution mode is as a storyteller, it will help strengthen that.
Yes. Ooh, so much to explore because, and this, I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast yet, but one of the things that I started doing when I was getting into public speaking and into podcasting, I would force myself to do an exercise similar to that. So I would say, okay, I'm driving, and I would just look at something. We're in Ohio, a cow. Cool. I'm going to I'm going to talk for the next 3 minutes on just cow. That is the topic. I'm going to talk about it. Okay, grass. I'm going to talk about that. Billboard. I'm going to talk about that. And it forces you to keep the conversation going, and it makes you a better conversationalist because you're like, okay, how do I keep it going? But then also, how do I take the invisible audience in this case on a ride where they actually care about this cow or
Right.
a blade of grass that I'm talking about? And if you can make a blade of grass interesting for 3 minutes, then you're starting to knock on the door of something special. But to your point, it feels exceptionally weird when you're starting. So weird.
Yeah.
But then it starts to become muscle memory and you're like, hold on, now I've developed this superpower. And so for me now I would say, okay, in this interaction that I'm having with somebody, what can I do to elevate the interaction? I'm about to say something. How can I turn what I'm saying into something that is not just informative, but enjoyable to consume? And then also back to what you were talking about with the delivery or distribution of the
Mhm.
story. I think about this in terms of you have to understand the environment, and this is where it does become a little bit performative, and my goal is to make sure that the environment or the mode of distribution doesn't get in the way of the authentic connection that I want to create.
Yes.
So an example would be for the TED Talk. I did a walkthrough the day before, the night, or no, I had a recorded version of it. And I thought I presented it well, but then I saw myself on stage and I was like, "Oh, I look small.
Hmm.
I'm staying in one space, but the stage is big." So I talked to one of my friends who's a stage actor, and so what she said is you have to control the space. So you have to figure out what your path is going to be so it doesn't look like the space is dominating you or engulfing you.
Yeah.
So now before every keynote, I walk the stage. I make sure I understand where on the stage it's squeaky. So I'm not
Right.
standing on squeaky things. I go to the back and I see, all right, what do I look like from the back? Oh, from the back right, because of the podiums here, I need to make sure that I'm going on either side of the podium so I'm not interrupting the connection from everybody in the room. If it's like a date or a meeting, okay, I'm going to make sure that I try to get there early so I understand where the seating is going to be. If there's something physical in between us, I'm going to rearrange the space slightly so there's more open space between us so you can see more of me, which leads to a deeper level of
Mm.
connection, makes you more trusting. If there's a big old blockade in front of us, it diminishes the amount we can connect. And so just being intentional about understanding what in your environment could take away from your ability to connect and communicate, that in itself is a way to amplify your communication because you're being intentional about how you're distributing it.
That's a great lesson. And what you just hit on is the willingness to be private. You know, we've talked about reps and practice. One thing I didn't say, and I should have, the reps and practice that you do, going to your example here, 90% of that should be private.
Yes.
In a
Yeah.
world where everything is like on camera, you need to have time where there isn't something at stake. And your preparation before the TED Talk, scoping out the vibes, seeing how big the room is, how far my voice goes. When I'm telling stories, I tell people will say like, "How do you tell so many private stories about your life?" It's like, not private. Like, that's only 1% of my life, dude. I'm telling stories. Ask my wife. She's like, "Shut the hell up." 99% of the day, I'm like telling story. So my practice and preparation are private. So there you go.
Mhm.
Someone who writes books can go, that's a triple P: practice and preparation and private. And
Yeah.
when you do that, one, what you did, you're actually setting up the infrastructure, and it goes full call back to what you said earlier. When you practice and you do it in private and you prepare for whatever the presentation or distribution mode is, then when it's time to perform, quadruple P, then you can let go because
Yes.
you built the house that you live in.
Mhm.
You're not building the house as you're living in it. You're building the foundation. It's like a train. You're not putting the tracks down as the train is going. The night before, you laid the tracks down, and that gives you the canvas. That gives you the parameters. And then when people get that sense of freedom, when you've had the virality that you've had in those speeches, or the connection, take away virality, just with the people in the audience, what they're recognizing is it's like being you mentioned your friend's a stage actor. I trained as an actor initially. It's being off script.
Yeah.
When you're on script, you're in the book. It's like, hey, to be or not to be, right? You're in the book. When that part, when the preparation, the memorization, the practice, the analysis, when all the X and O's, the ones and zeros, when you're done with that, and you've put a little time into that privately, then when it comes to the public moment, you're free because you know the room, you know what to say, you know where that person in the back is. You've practiced that story a couple times. Now you can play. Now you're just playing jazz because the bass line's behind you. You're not right. Like it's beautiful. It's like, and that's what it is. Most folk don't do all the preparation. They don't do it in private. And and that's why it's so scary, because they're doing this thing that should be free and they're constricted. And that's when you lose trust.
Yeah.
That's when you lose trust. They go, that dude's on script. He's not free. He's on book. And then they go, what? Oh man, is he wasting my time? Is she wasting my time? Did they really prepare for this? Are they trying to sell me something? What's their intention? People start getting suspicious. I'm Sicilian American. I'm naturally suspicious. I'm looking out my window. The mailman, I was like, who's that guy? So we naturally are suspicious. And so when you free yourself with all the preparation that we've talked about, the wonderful example you gave with your TED Talk, when you're freeing your audience to trust.
That's powerful.
Come on.
You know, it's funny. It is funny because when you think about being on script versus being off script, and the goal is to be so good that off script is better. The thing that people aspire to when it comes to communication and storytelling is bad communication and storytelling. So I want to be able to script and predict everything and have my agenda and just go and do this my way. And then people are like, seems like you're on script and seems like there is an agenda and it seems like it's about you because there is no me in this interaction. You're just focusing completely on your script, you know?
Right.
And I think one of the things that is, the dangers, I don't want to say dangers, the downside of seeing people who are brilliant at their craft is that they make it look easy, and as a result we say there's something that they have that we don't have, they're so talented and I cannot achieve that, you know. And so it makes it hard for people to say, oh, how can I be as smooth as Aaron when it comes to storytelling? Well, the fact of the matter is you've been practicing. And so the reason you're so great is because you've practiced observational learning and getting your reps in. And now for those people who say, man, I wish I could be a great storyteller, I wish I could be a great communicator, but I can't, so let me just script everything. No, you don't realize that it just takes a lot more work than you realize behind the scenes.
That's right. And it's interesting. Script can be, to your point, if someone feels more comfortable with the script, use it as your preparation, not your destination. So I'm with you, because trust me, like when I hear you contextualize things, I'm like, I'm done. I'm never going to be and by the way, I know I can't be you. I can use your skill sets. I can learn from you. I can, and make myself holistically stronger. But I do think there is something to be said about finding the thing that comes a little more natural to you and going at it and following that and going at it. And so for me, there was a lot of things that didn't come natural. I wanted to be a guitar player. I was okay. Didn't come natural. I wanted to be a stage actor. Okay. I wanted to be a film actor. Had some skills there. When the diner owner, Johnny, next to the acting studio said, I'll pay you $200 to tell stories about Ohio to everybody waiting for bacon, egg, and cheese. I'm like, what? A story? Yeah, tell your stories. Yeah, about Ohio and how, the sports teams piss you off. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah, about your dad and all this stuff and growing up. And okay, you just want me to tell stories. Yeah. Just keep them drinking coffee, because people get pissed off. The lines in New York, when you have a good bacon, egg, and cheese, they go out the door and it's cold. So I'd stand outside. My first paying storytelling gig was $200 a week, cash, from Johnny, the diner owner.
That's so cool. Wow.
And it wasn't about money. It was more about validation that I found something that was of value to people, that I had a skill set at. And so then, to your point, for 15 years, I'm going to do that every single day and get better and better and better at it. And when you do that, by the way, I can't be Kwame. I can't be Simone. I can't be other people. I can learn from them, but I don't want to say you can't be flexible, but there is it's like this Joni Mitchell song, something's lost and something's gained when living life every day. When you pick a way to live or a way to be or perform, LeBron James, he could play tight end, but not as well as he's played as a basketball player. Like, he has the skill, flexibility. But see what I'm saying? You just pick that mode. And so I think that's it. That's what makes it easy. But going back to the scripting thing, if you go, okay, listen, I know my skill set, and I know that as an extemporaneous storyteller, I could practice it, but it's never going to be a deliverable. Okay, you can still use it for your skill set, but you can still script out your journey on the stage or your interview ahead of time to get it to build the form, but then take it away. Don't use it. Don't do this stuff I'm seeing on AI. Don't do this stuff where you're looking at the screen and you're like, hey, my name's Aaron and I'm a great addition to your company. Like, don't do that. If you need to memorize it, memorize it. If you need to write it, but do it privately and practice it. And then when the interview comes, trust that you did that work, and then be alive and be human. So I just wanted to, because sometimes it's scary when it's like, wait a second, I can never use this. No, use a script, but use it in the preparation. And the one thing, the leap of faith that most folk have to take is in those moments at the TED Talk, in the interview, on the podcast, with the story. That's when you do storytelling without a net. So prep however you need to prep, but give yourself an opportunity to be human, and then you'll see what happens. I think you start building a community. Yeah.
I love this. Amazing. So one thing that we always do is we bring Simone in at the end to ask a question, because he's been listening. He's always got an eye for what the audience needs. So I saw him leaning in. Simone, what you got for us?
I have a question about the length of the stories, of the short stories, because I've seen that you chose 7-minute stories. Mm-hmm. So is there a reason why you're using 7 minutes for the stories?
Yes and yes. So the first yes is I naturally found that was just the cadence that I told stories. Before I started doing it as a podcast, I had toured for about 3 years with an hour-long monologue around the country. So I did it for I did 200 performances in 20 states, and it was an hour-long monologue. And being a sports fan from Cleveland, I always want to, I'm always competitive. I'm always angry because, in recent history, our teams have lost, but we have great pride that we could be great again. And so I do Monday analysis. So I'm very sports driven growing up. So I look at tape. So when I was doing that monologue on the road, I would be in my hotel room and I would have like a DVD, or I'd have someone whatever back in the day, they'd stream it, and I would watch the tape. And I found that in the hour, I would fast forward. I'd be like, 7 minutes, 25 seconds, that little vignette. So even my hour-long monologue, it's all broken down into short stories. And I noticed that for some reason I had a natural cadence. And so looking and talking about what we have, which is what do you do naturally well? I found that was a natural pattern that I didn't have to go upstream for. I could just naturally tell them. So it's like, cool, I can tell 7-minute stories that way. The second yes is one of the things I found out after the fact is that it's super effective. So not only was it a natural cadence, what I could do with it was, and I mean effective in a couple of ways, and I'll just make it personal for a second, which is it was effective for me to scale and tell stories at scale and with volume using that formula. If I tried to tell an hour story, I wouldn't be able to create a volume of work. I wouldn't be able to create the consistency that I do. So one, it matched my natural skill set. I could fit an extemporaneous story within that 7 minutes. And it's a perfect amount of time, and I discovered this later, for you to do a lot with a little. 30 seconds isn't a lot. That's a viral moment. That's algorithmic. 7 minutes, it's a little bit of time. It really is. I could take you not on an Odyssey. We're not talking Dostoevsky, but I can take you in a small moment. And I believe most people really connect in small moments rather than huge macro moments. And so it was effective. It was natural. I could do it at scale. And I felt it was respectful of my audience's time, especially coming in, building something rather than coming in with a name. I didn't have some folk, they have celebrity status, and they'll get that lean in moment just because of what they've accomplished. For me, I was in the independent circuit, but I was an independent artist. So it wasn't just like Aaron Calafato, like, what? Who's that guy? Like, so what I would have to do is, again, earn their trust. And I felt a great way to earn the trust was if you have 7 minutes in your day, and it's still a lot, but between things, if you give me 7 minutes, I promise you I'll leave you better than I found you. And by the way, it's storytelling. So I don't have an agenda. It's art for art's sake. I give it away, and I'm not going to tell. I'm not didactic. I'm not teaching. Most of the time, I'm the fool. I'm the clown. I'm the one that's like, oh, I fucked this up. But if you get something from that, that's yours to take. So for all those reasons, that cadence of 7 minutes really, really worked. And it's become just kind of a formula, and I've just stuck with it and just kind of build my own little corner of the digital audio space. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's great. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's a great example of how sometimes the data that you collect is just almost accidental and utterly unique to you. Because for somebody else, it might be 6 minutes, it might be 5 minutes, but
Right.
it for you, it's 7. And I think one of the things I love about it is just leaning into the authenticity. One of the things that I would say to my wife, a little running joke we have is, love is when your weird matches my weird. And we
Yes.
could be weird together.
We're weirdos.
Everybody's weird. We just have different brands of weird.
Do you know what my text story with my family is, Kwame? Do you know what our nickname is? We're called the Weirds.
Are you serious? Oh, that's perfect.
It's called the Weirds. Yeah. So I told, yeah.
This is it. And so once you just own it and accept it and just say, this is why it works for me, and just lean into that, then you start to see your own unique results start to flourish. Because again, that's why I don't like to be so prescriptive in the way that we approach things. I mentioned this in my keynotes and trainings in negotiation, because a lot of times it can be very technical, and I used to be a very technical negotiator too, but then I recognized that, and I've realized that a lot of times in the past, when you have people who are giving their approach to the concepts of negotiation and communication, they've been codifying their personality more so than giving specific skills that could be utilized from other people. And so it's like, hey, this is what worked for me. This is how I did it. And this is exactly how you should do it. Well, we're not the same. We're very different. People respond differently to me than you, and vice versa. And so when you start to gather that data through getting more reps and starting to realize what works for you, whether it's a negotiation, communication, sales, relationship building, whatever, don't question it too much. If it works for you, you may never understand why it works for you. Just know that it works for you.
Works.
And lean in.
If it's not broke, don't try to fix it.
That's right.
And it may not fit into your narrative and your story of what you think you should be doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to be Marlon Brando. No, you're not. That was
right.
But we all do it. We tell ourselves internal stories, and that's a good thing because it gives us aim. Don't get trapped by them.
Right.
There's an elasticity that you can transfer, and you can transcend the story that leads you. You're not defined by it. So we need stories to motivate ourselves in our careers. I mean, by the way, I know we could go for hours, so I'll pause it here. I'll keep it simple. But my point is, there's a whole nother conversation about the stories we tell ourselves, because we're internal narrative. Remember that pre-manifestation, there's stories happening there. And we tell ourselves stories to guide ourselves, to negotiate things with ourselves, to connect with ourselves, to learn, to all that stuff. But it can also be, what you've done is you created a hack where it's like, don't get locked into that. If you find something by accident where it's like, oh, I thought I was going to be the greatest guitar player on the face of the earth, and you find that you're just really good at telling stories from your basement in Ohio, and people like that and want that, and in their daily lives, at least make that part of their regimen, don't sleep on that. Go after that thing, because even though it doesn't fit, but I'm this, but are you?
Right.
So I'm not saying yes or no, but it's one of those things where I went through, it was like, I thought it was going to be like this. That's just a sketch of what it could be. That's a possible world. Be open to the other story. Because like all great stories, man, they have a little twist ending.
100%. And that's something I had to realize, that success and victory and what your life ends up looking like is always going to be different from the way that you planned it.
Always.
And if you try to stay on script in life, a lot of times you miss the beauty of what it means to be off script. And you just realize, okay, listen, if I would have planned my career perfectly, it would have been imperfect compared to what it actually is. So I love this because it's great life advice, not just teaching people how to communicate and have great stories, but also giving them the authenticity and the confidence to write their own story, and recognize that as you are writing your own story, there's always a co-author named Fate that will have his hand on the wheel too. And so you just have to go with the flow and create something cool.
Couldn't have said it better, man. Couldn't have said it better. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, listen, man, this has been great. Thank you,
it was
Aaron,
great,
for
man.
coming
So
on
great to
by.
meet you, both of you. But yeah, it's great conversation, Kwame. It was awesome.
Yes, likewise. And listen, before you go, let the
Mhm.
listeners know about the podcast, how they can get in touch with you and follow your work.
Yeah, I mean, just two things. You could just go and Google the number 7 minute stories, and you'll see the first 2 pages are all my madness, just telling stories for the last 6 years. So you'll find it. Just type in 7 minute stories, and then it's everywhere. We have a wild, by the way, you have Apple, you have all the big ones, but we have a wild audience on Pandora. So that
Really?
can I tell you one thing real quick? We talk about distribution modes.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on the fact we've built, just like you've built a massive community, built a massive global community across all of these different podcast feeds. But it's in those hidden places that a lot of people are, oh yeah. So follow it on Apple. I think it's on Spotify, but it's other places, and on Pandora. It's on, it's iHeartRadio, all the things where, what do they say? Where they're like, wherever podcasts are found. So you can find it there, or hell, I have folk that go to the website and just, you can listen to it there. It's all the same thing. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where, oh, and by the way I designed it is I'm actually officially giving it a nonprofit arm this year. So the way I've done it is, it's, free, open to the public, will always be free. It's art for art's sake. There's no advertisements. There's nothing like that. Nothing wrong with shows that do, but for me, that was the way to do it. And luckily, on the back end, some of the consultancy and the storytelling coaching and the other stuff I do came from that community that said, hey, this is interesting. And then so companies go, well, can you help us tell stories?
Yeah.
Like the ones you tell these folks. So yeah, look up 7 minute stories wherever you're at, and I think you'll find something that will fit your day, and you may leave you better than you found it. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing. And listeners, we will link to all of those in the description. Aaron, thank you again, brother. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kwame. Thank you, Simone. This was awesome. I can't wait. Let's keep in touch. I know we'll do. And by the way, I'm going to be sending an invite to you, harassing you to come on to one of my podcast bonus series. So
Absolutely.
I know you're busy, but
We're
we got a
making it
cool
happen.
we got a cool thing called Storytelling University. And it's a bonus series on the 7 minute story feed. And it's where I don't tell the story. I just ask folks about storytelling. So I'm going to have Shannon hound you. And if you find it in the next quarter or two, or even this year, I'd love to have you on the show and pick your brain.